this scroll is 200 years older, the original scroll of course, 200 years older than the oldest copy existing since till that time. You know, the Jews they know this is a holy word. They can't use it as another scripture. So what they are doing when they doing copies of the scrolls and from the books, a codex called, and they have more than 3 mistakes, they are not allowed to use it.
So 3 mistakes, and it's this a year's worth of work is.
The whole work is
thrown
they
out.
only can give it for school, but
Yeah.
not reading in a synagogue. So they have a strong system of protecting this. They even counting the letters to know the numbers, to check if it's correct or not correct. So, and when a scroll is damaged, it was put in a storage room in the synagogue. It's called geniza. You say it in English the same, geniza, that's a place for hidden things. You put inside even a candelabrum where the lights are on it. If it's
Well, we call it a closet, but I mean, I don't know if that's what...
no, geniza, this is a storage room, which you're using in each synagogue today has a geniza. Today it's a rubbish, a huge rubbish thing where you put waste inside. And this, you put all the papers inside there, the name of God is written. Because this you are not allowed to put in the rubbish or in the waste. So it must be buried on the cemetery. So you collect all the things where the name of God is, and then you will bury it in the cemetery. So what happens? The old scrolls, the old codices all disappeared. And only because of great protection, there's one copy in Aleppo, in Syria today, which is very much damaged because of the starting of the State of Israel. The Arabs burned the synagogue. This is a copy, the Codex Aleppo from the 9th century. And the other existing total copy is today in St. Petersburg in Russia, at this time called Leningrad, so we called it Codex Leningradensis. This manuscript is 1008 after Christ.
So 1,000 years after.
1,000 years after Jesus. But all the stories are much older, so the question was, how good is the text transmitted?
Yeah, and that's the question that I've been searching out too. Just as you, when you're a younger person,
Yes.
you're asking a question,
Yeah.
why should I believe this?
Yes.
And then, you know, a lot of people suggest, well, this has been copied so many times
Yes.
that we can't trust it. And what have you found out about that?
What is amazing, I asked the famous scholar John Trevor, who the first one who saw the scroll in 1948 and made the famous photographs. And he was on the board of the revision for the American Bible. And they only had 13 places where they changed the text a little bit to make it much more better. A famous verse is, perhaps we can read, is Isaiah 21.
Okay, and Isaiah.
Isaiah. Okay.
Isaiah
At the end of the program, I totally know the name of the prophets in English. Isaiah 21. It must be verse 8.
Now, once again, this has got the old King's English. For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go, set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth. I'm translating here. And he saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, and a chariot of asses, and a chariot of camels, and he hearkened diligently with much heed.
And now is a very important verse.
And he cried, A lion, my Lord, I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and I am set in my ward whole nights.
So this is amazing. You have here a lion. So if you're looking at all the translation, if it's German or English or whatever you have, it's a very problematic verse. What has it to do with a lion? Is there a lion from a circus or something like this? What happened there?
Yeah.
In some translations you have, he's crying like a lion. So this is much more nonsense. Or he's saying, oh, the lion is out. So you see this sentence is problematic. The word watchman and the word lion is very similar in Hebrew. It's only one letter on another place. So the scribe, when they copied the scrolls, they had watchmen standing in Hebrew, but they only because of careless in the moment, when you're copying so many letters, they only put it one step too much on the right side. So the watchman became a lion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's only one letter. and it sounds very similar, watchman and lion in Hebrew. So you have lion in all the editions, but since they discovered the Dead Sea Scroll,
it was watchman.
You have watchman, and this makes sense. This is King Hezekiah. It's prophet Isaiah, and Hezekiah has a problem that Sanherib, the Assyrian king, is coming, and so he needs the watchman to pay attention.
So what you're saying is that when they discovered the Isaiah scroll, they actually had more insight into what these verses were.
Exactly. So on very small places, you could have the original text. Yes, you knew that the lion is something, a mistake in this part, but you only have it on some very small places, and it never changed the theological meaning of the text. So the virgin birth is standing here in Isaiah 7, and you have Isaiah 53 which we as Christians believe is a prophecy to the pierced Messiah on the cross, Messiah on the cross. So this is all inside. So this is only small details, but these help. It's the Bible, and the scholars are saying we need every letter must be correct. So they are searching, and this is the going back to the roots. But this scroll is only one of totally 1,050 scrolls.
1,050 scrolls.
Unbelievable, much more than we have Bibles here in the room.
Right.
So this is a huge library from the time of Jesus and before Jesus.
So the Isaiah scrolls, in a way, was significant too because it had so much of it, right? I mean, it was 61 chapters. And
66 chapters.
66 chapters. So it was one of the most complete scrolls that they found?
Exactly. From all these scrolls, only 10 are complete like this one. The other, and you will be amazed, this is not a copy, this is original. These are the cigarette box. The Jordanians collected the scrolls, the fragments inside. They discovered from 1947 up to 1956, 11 caves. 10 scrolls totally, and 80,000 fragments. And the fragments are so small like this. These are from cave 11. Some people ask me how you can own Dead Sea Scrolls, original, even it's unwritten fragments. So the scholar who published the text, one of the scholars who published the text from cave 11, just before he died, he said to me, take this, it's looking like cigarette scrolls.
Yeah, they look like a cigarette.
And the people are believing when they clean up my room when I'm dead, they're thinking I was smoking.
So
but take these scrolls and show it to the people so they understand what is the work. Sorry, sir?
This is actually part of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, these are fragments of the original Dead Sea Scrolls. Right. The scholars had been allowed at this time, it was Jordanian. After the work, they get no salary, but they could take as a souvenir some small fragments which are unwritten. So you have some collections of scholars who have some unwritten scrolls, and my mentor in the Dead Sea Scroll history is Professor Hunzinger. He's the only German guy who was invited by the Jordanians to do the work on the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I asked him, please, you have several of the original cigarette box from that time. Give me one to show it.
Yeah, let me see. Let me get the cover too. It's pretty interesting.
And you know, it's very nice because when the scholars went up into the caves, they always discovered these boxes of Jordanian cigarettes. It means the Bedouins had been always the first in the caves.
So they were there.
So the scholars had no chance to find the scrolls.
Up in the shade. Who knows what happened to a lot of those scrolls? They might have started a few campfires, right? Sadly.
You mean firing the scrolls?
Well, I'm saying that, I mean, who knows what, paper, you know, maybe they used them for some.
I'm working since nearly 30 years on the history of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I know a lot of the people involved in the history. Because my big interest, I met many people in Israel and in West Bank who were involved in the history of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I interviewed them, and they told me that Bedouins had one scroll, they opened it in their camp, in a tent from one part to another part from the tent, and suddenly a desert storm came and the scroll was split off and thrown with the wind. But they said, oh, let it go away, it's nothing. I heard from one of the other boys involved that they collected the fragments, they sold it to the British soldiers as souvenirs, they sent it to missionaries to ask what we have here. We don't know what is this, so perhaps someone finds, who's watching the program, letters from a missionary in Australia with envelopes from Palestine. Look inside, perhaps there are some Dead Sea Scrolls in it. And what they did, they collected in a basket. And the mother from one of the Arab guys was so much, not excited, I would say in English, upset. she wanted to clean the dirty shirts. She took the whole basket, they told me, with all the fragments, throw it out from the cleaning room to have the basket for the dirty shirts. So many things happen with the scrolls, many times. But one story which we perhaps have heard, which is not true, people are telling the Bedouins make the fragments they found very small to get more money. But this is nonsense. Professor Hunzinger told me when the Bedouins came, they even put something soft in the ground and collected the fragments in the cave, and if they saw the fragments belonged together, they put it on a plate, because how bigger the fragment was, they received more bakshish. Bakshish in Hebrew, a tip.
Yeah.
So they were very much interested to have large parts of the scrolls, because then they earned much more money.
Mm.